scene stuff. So.
Like I said, I'm Matthew, one of the writers. I'm the writer, one of the co-directors and producer of the project. One of the things that really inspired me to tell this story was, I'm really active on social media, and I kept coming across all these videos of dads doing their daughter's hair, and I'm going to show you one real quick that inspired us real quick. So it's obviously it's easy to be inspired when you're coming across things like that. But for me also, it's just a combination of things. Obviously these videos are very cute and touching, but there was a reason I saw why they were going more viral than other type of videos I was sharing. It was like moms interacting with their kids, and I kind of found out that it was more so just because people weren't used to seeing black dads interacting with their kids in this way. I think, I don't know, for whatever reason, the stereotype is that black fathers aren't involved in their kids' lives like this, let alone doing kind of tasks like these where, taking care of their daughters and kind of doing their hair and things of that nature. So for me, I have a lot of friends that are young fathers, and I hope to be one myself one day, and I just wanted to represent for them and also represent for young girls who have real natural curly hair and don't really see themselves represented in mainstream media, and kind of give them a character in Zuri that they could see themselves in and really, just kind of connect to, because media is so powerful when you don't see your hair represented in young heroines and, young heroes and things of that nature, really can do a number on your self-confidence. So, we had a picture book that ended up coming out. So we did a Kickstarter campaign initially, and one of the things that we offered was a picture book as one of our gifts. And so the book came out in May, hit the New York Times bestseller list. Vashti Harrison, who did some of our initial artwork for the Kickstarter, she also helped us with a little bit of the character designs. And it's just been a really awesome process. Our initial goal was for $75,000. We ended up raising almost $300,000, which was crazy. We had our initial goal of 75 within those first 5 days, and just insane amount of people that I never even knew would even know about this project kind of backed us, like Chance the Rapper and Chelsea Clinton and Chris Rock and Gabrielle Union, Jordan Peele, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just been an amazing process. And so what ended up happening was, so initially did the Kickstarter campaign. I was like, all right, the dream would be to get it in theaters. I've often kind of gone to different animated feature films, and you see the sweet animated short kind of in front of it. And that was always kind of my long-term goal. Didn't really know how it would happen at the time, because like I said, we just kind of did this Kickstarter campaign fairly independently. But then just like things happen, sometimes you build it and they'll come. And so, my manager, who's also a producer on the project, Monica Young, who's in here, she was really good friends with Karen Toliver's husband. I believe they went to school together or something. And it was crazy. At the time, she was working at Fox, and really wanted to try to lend support, but really wasn't able to at that particular time, and ended up moving over to Sony. And it just really seemed like a cool opportunity to kind of collaborate, and I'll let her kind of take the start from there.
Yeah, and all I can say is I'm very lucky, because I've been in animation for 20-ish years. I'm over 15, but no. But I've never had something. You always put yourself into the work, and you work with people that are passionate. But this short just is so personal on so many levels that I was just grateful to be even asked to be a part of it. And what I do is I'm a studio exec, so I oversee movies and the Ice Age movies and things on Sony now. And they're big budget movies, so I've never done anything in this micro budget. So I've basically told Matthew and Monica, I have no idea how to do this. So if you're willing to hire me where I know nothing, I'm just we're gonna have to figure it out together. And again, everybody's just passionate about the project. Really made it special, And for us, it was really just trying to figure out, how do you do these, and how do you, what do we want out of them, and all we knew is that we really wanted to make something that was elevated, that was special, and we knew the care that it was going to take to make something to show really the first black, family in this light, so we knew that the bar was high. And we obviously had Vashti Harrison's designs to start with, but we had to decide. Normally we see these things in CG. We didn't have the money for CG, and we knew that we really wanted the hair to kind of have a life of its own and to be fluid and beautiful as Black family as beautiful as possible. And that's when we realized we had to do it in 2D, and we were very excited to put the team together. And I was very lucky to be working with Everett at the time at Sony, and begged him to be a part of it. And this whole project was days and nights for us. We had nights and weekends. We had day jobs, and we were very busy, but everybody's passion about it made it kind of work. And we just wanted to see how we could show a family that looked like that, and give as much care as possible to it. And so we really thought that the 2D look and the way that the hair really needed to look beautiful and fluid was going to be important in Everett. And the whole team that we put together, including I think the next show's Bruce Smith, and a bunch of people that kind of came together. I think that's to kind of make sure that we could get a look like that. So we are going, and the one thing that we realized is the way that the shorts for the features work is it's a very iterative process. So when we were making like a scratch short or something, we'd really take it through its paces. We'd use all the resources we had with Sony to use our colleagues to kind of take a look at the animatic many times, so that we could really just go through it over and over again to figure out what the best way to tell the story and what's important and not important. And that became really the way we thought we were going to be able to elevate it and take our time with that process, and we really did that. And the real blessing for me was, again, this was a nights and weekends project, but Sony was aware that I was doing it sort of on the side, and then Sony became aware of it and saw how important it was, and not only did they give us some money to kind of help finish it, but they gave us resources, and then were blessed enough to say that they could put it in front of a movie, which was exactly Matthew's original dream, and we didn't at the time know how that was going to work out. So really, just it was an amazing, support of the project, because they really saw the power of it like everyone else, and again, just was really grateful that we got to do it. So I think the next slide was really how we put it together. Stacey Newton was our third producing partner with Monica Young. Stacey worked at Pixar for years, so again, she knew how to sort of elevate these projects. And Bruce Smith, who's the legend that everyone knows as Bruce Smith, came on and really helped us figure out how to get that fluid kind of look, make sure it was just looked as loving as it could. I mean, there was nobody better to help us, because we were in, again, a production company that had, we were on a tight schedule, so how to kind of make that, between Everett and Bruce doing drawovers and kind of figuring it out, it was really the magic. And of course, Peter Ramsey was like our godfather as we continued to show the piece. So
we always joke that we had probably 90% of all the Black people in animation on the project. Kind of put the infinity stones together for that.
Which was why it was so just personal for us, because we've never been able to do that together and kind of be in a room together like that. So, yeah, and I think Everett's going to take you through some character stuff.
So, talk a little bit about the character design. So, basically, when you work in animation, when you work on some of these animated movies, it's kind of like this unspoken sort of like rule book, or an unspoken sort of approach to character design that it's kind of like the old standbys. And for this movie, for this short, we really wanted to avoid falling into these sort of cliches, and it was super important to Matthew that we present this family that was very specific, very relatable, and really bring across this like really special, touching story.
Yeah, like for me, so for the dad, for example, so, originally in our Kickstarter campaign, the dad looked, he was like in his 40s, didn't have any facial hair, didn't have any tattoos. And, when we brought it to Karen, she had the idea that, we should try to make him look younger. Let's try to appeal to a different audience. We have a great opportunity here to kind of circumvent some stereotypes. And, in a lot of the videos that I had come across, a lot of fathers were younger and they were millennials. And so for me, I always try to think in terms of normalizing us. I think as filmmakers, that's our most important thing that we can do. I oftentimes find myself watching television shows from different cultures, and I'm able to relate to them, and you're able to see like, oh wow, literally everybody's the same in a lot of different ways. And for us, with the father in particular, we wanted to give him tattoos. We wanted him to have locks. I don't know if you guys saw the story a couple weeks ago with the Penn State player. You know, there's this football player at Penn State, and this alumni guy wrote him a letter talking about, oh, you got these locks, you wear these tattoos. He's like, I wish we could bring it back to how it was in the old days, you know. And I think there, in some ways, people could look at this project and be like, oh, it's about a dad doing hair, you know, who cares? But, you know, and black hair is policed all the time. You know, oftentimes, you know, black women can't wear their hair in certain instances where if they're lawyers or they're in other professions. You know, oftentimes black men get kind of stereotyped and looked at a certain way if their hair is a certain way. So for us, we just really wanted to make it as normal as possible and also, you know, relatable. And our thing was like, we're able to oftentimes sit in these movies and relate to characters that don't look like us. We all can watch The Incredibles and we can see ourselves in those characters, so why can't people see themselves in our characters in, you know, in the same way? So that really was kind of the goal behind that, and also the entire family. You know, the mom, we wanted to make sure that obviously she's kind of hiding in plain sight, so we wanted to make sure that, you know, she had a certain look that people could relate to, and, you know, also with Zuri.
Yeah, so when we went to approach this, we got these beautiful drawings from Vashti. So she did these amazing paintings. But we kind of, very early, we kind of figured that it might be really difficult to produce something like this in 2D. And she has these very delicate and beautiful renderings. And the main thing we were concerned about is like, can we reproduce this in 2D? So the challenge was to bring in, like, translate her into a form that could easily be animated, but also still retain that charm that Vashti's drawing at. And that was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
We really struggled with that for a while. So it was about kind of taking what's there, reducing it to like what's the thing that make it like, you know, make the appeal, and boiling it down. And we kind of came up with, yeah, this is great. So I love this. This is so cute. So we established that we'd be working in Harmony. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's this really amazing software that allows you to move drawings around and you can kind of create something. It's like an interesting fusion of 2D and 3D. And that was something that was really appealing to us because we felt we could build a character and we could still retain that look without having to worry that much about keeping things on model. But both me and Stacey didn't really have a lot of experience with Harmony, so we weren't sure exactly if we were going to be able to pull that off. So our first instincts was to kind of reduce Zuri down to a very kind of graphic look. So we turned to picture books. I immediately thought of like, oh, it'd be great if we got this to look like a book. And we also knew that the children's book was coming out. So we loved the character designs in Island Born. I thought these were super cute and appealing. Love how they translate the hair. Like it looks just really appealing and cute. And of course, we got Snowy Day, the next by Everett Downing Jr, which is just beautiful. We love that like super graphic style. And we were really attracted to and inspired by Tiffany Ford's drawing. She's just an amazing director now in animation, and her stuff is just so beautiful and simple and just inspiring. So because we're making this at the exact same time as the book, we started realizing that we didn't want to stray too far from the book. We wanted to be pretty close. So it kind of became a challenge to balance, like, you know, the book design with the character design.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, like we got the book deal like August of 2017, and like we were literally writing it and producing the book at the same time we were working on the short. So we were always kind of going back and forth and kind of, okay, we got some new drawings in from the book, let's reference them for the short, and kind of vice versa. So it definitely
It's nice for one to lead the other,
right.
You know, let's just do it together.
Right.
So.
And it was a challenge because we would go into a certain direction, and then we would get these more amazing drawings back from Vashti, and we'd go back, and that was really great. He really wanted to like, no, I want it to look like a book. So for me, it was a challenge because, you know, there was a very specific line, like, you know, we brought in Maria Yee, who's like this really talented character designer, and she did some great translations, but there's always that like fine line of like when you're trying to capture someone else's drawing. And you got to be kind of careful, because when you're working that minute detail, it's really easy to sort of get into, like, when you're pushing and pulling like little parts, the character starts looking a little freaky, you know. So we spend so much time just kind of like pushing some of the, make the eye up. What if we make the pupils a little bit bigger? What if we made like the eyebrows a little bit higher? I mean, at one point there was like a 45-minute discussion about your placement. And Matthew was kind of looking at us like, what are we doing? What's going on? But ultimately we landed on a Zuri that was far from like the graphic look. And actually she's pretty complex in her design. She kind of has like a classic Disney feel. And, but you know, we thought it felt like a great translation. Stacey and I were kind of nervous about how she would be handled in harmony. Can we retain this, like, you know, beautiful look? And we didn't know how robust we could go with the animation on our budget. So that was always a discussion. And then there was a question that, did we over-design her? Is this going to work? You know? And this is about the time we brought on the incomparable Bruce Smith, who came in with all his amazing, like, 2D knowledge and, like, just power. And he was amazing, and he really helped us cross that finish line. And he came up with that polish. Like, he just came in and he's like, no, what you need to do is just do this. And he just, when he joined, it's like all like came together. It's like glue. So Bruce was the final piece of the puzzle, and he kind of helped us bridge the gap between design and animation. And we had a lot of fun designing Zuri's hairstyles. This was great. We had so much fun, and we did a lot of research on this. And this was also a super meaningful part of the process, considering, you know, I'm dad, you know, I got 2 daughters, I'm in charge of the hair, you know, so I know you gotta be specific, you know, when you're working on that stuff. There's many mornings where my daughter's like, this is not working, you know, so you gotta redo it, so it's a big deal. And this is a celebration of, you know, black hair, so we had to get it right, and we had to get it right in harmony. So the incredible Alex Soto, like at 6 Point Hardest, he had the challenge of like doing his hair justice, and this is the test we saw. And it was at this point we kind of felt like, okay, I think this is going to work. This is like really coming together. When we saw this, I was, you know, this convinced me like we can do it. This is it. And it was super important that we did it this way in order to keep it on mono and retain that appeal, the appeal of Vashti stuff. So once we saw this, we felt like we were definitely on the right track, and then Alex ended up treating her hair in sections so we could kind of get a big mass of hair and make sure that we had a way of manipulating it. So there's like a lot of different sections of her hair that we can animate separately to kind of give like a nice fun and springy feel to it. And we could also like manipulate it into all sort of shapes for the story. So, and actually 2D ended up being a lot more flexible than 3D. Because 3D, like, that's a technical nightmare. Any of you guys know, like, hair, especially black hair? Oh.
Yeah. And look, you know, originally, you know, when we did the Kickstarter campaign, like, I really wanted it to be CG. You know, for me, I was like, you know, this is the style of the time, you know, so we got to be on par, you know. But, you know, budget oftentimes will dictate kind of your creative choices. And for me, it was kind of like, all right, are we gonna, you know, we had discussions about this, like, are we gonna make kind of a CG short that's gonna kind of be lacking and, you know, kind of start taking away from the story when you look at it, because you're like, oh, this, you know, we all are used to seeing, you know, going to movies and seeing really incredible CG animations, and I didn't want to have that take away from the story. And so for us, it was like, all right, you know, 2D is actually a really good opportunity to kind of take it back to the old style of animation, but also, you know, just really allow Zuri's hair to have more life and be more appealing. So, yeah.
It ended up being, you know, once we saw the 2D stuff, it was this charm and appeal that I don't know if we could have got that in 3D. It was just so much more charming. So when we were working on the characters, we always talked about authenticity. So Matthew, he knew that this guy, he was a very specific person. We had to nail him. So he's a young dad, he's hip, he's got swagger, and he has to present, he needs to be presented in a way that that informs that, his design informs all that. Because, you know, like, storytelling and animation is all about conveying all the information as soon as you see it. So body shape, hair, what he's wearing, tattoo, like even his socks, what socks he's wearing. There's like
socks,
very
the socks, the sandals, and the shorts. That was such a conversation. Like, that's a specific thing, right? Like, that's the college. Like, I'm about to go out and make a quick run, but I want to get too dressed up and throw the slides on, and we want to make sure it was very specific. So
there's a very specific line of cool. Like, if you go a little bit too short behind status,
yeah, we didn't want them looking like Showtime Lakers. Shorts.
All right. Well, so Harmony, provide us the support and consistency, from the rigs in order to allow us to get what we wanted, and also kind of made it flexible for us so we could iterate without worrying about like the hair. So, for example, when you see the hair rotating, that was all the rig, so we didn't have to worry about volume shrinking or anything like that. So that was, once we saw all the stuff, we felt really good about it going forward. And mom was always beautiful just from the beginning. Like the designs done on her. Like I think the first time we saw her, we were like, yeah, that's her. We had like very few notes. We got mole notes, but that's another conversation. Aside from that, she was amazing.
Yeah, the mole was really important with mom because, the mom is hiding in plain sight as the hair vlogger. So we wanted to have something where, like, if you rewatched it, you're like, oh, she was there the whole time. So, the mole, Monica, our producer on there, she had the idea of adding a mole. And there was so many conversations about the mole placement as well. Because, animation, everything has to be very specific. So,
yeah. Because clarity is super important, so we wanted to make sure, like, we didn't want to give too much away, right, but we also wanted there to be a nod, so, when you watch it again, you're like, oh, it was always there, and like, and it actually makes it, makes repeat viewing like that much more special. So, mom she's a well-known blogger, hair blogger, so it was really important to like capture the culture, this culture of hair blogging. So, you guys met with bloggers, help you out in detail?
Yeah, we did a lot of brainstorming and wanted to make sure that there was enough products on the table, just to make it really feel as relatable as possible. We talked to bloggers. We had to believe that a blogger's husband, even though he was in this house this whole time, and has seen her do her post, still didn't know how to do hair. And my friend said, yep, she would not know. So we were like, okay, good.
Some beautiful pictures of mom. Oh yeah, this is mom's rig when we first saw her, and I felt like hers. I mean, she was just on point the whole time. Like even her rig looked good. And I think this was the first test we actually saw the whole kind of look together on a character, and we love Alex and the team over at 6.2 such a great job. Like even if you watch it, there's like somehow the textures moving. It really gives that feeling of like an illustrated book. Which is great. Go to the next one.
Oh, go back. You go back one?
Yeah.
There you go. The many hairstyles
Yes.
in the vlog. So yeah. Again, hair was such an important part of this, and we just really wanted to make sure that it had that authentic style. I think for me, I don't know about you guys, but every time I have an issue or something, trying to figure something out, I don't know how to do it, Google and YouTube are the first two places I go to. And, I know a lot of young fathers who kind of do the same approach, they go straight to YouTube and check out some of these tutorials and kind of see kind of what's going on. And a lot of the fathers and some of the videos that we were inspired by, they were also very helpful in just like, okay, this is how I would approach it. And obviously Everett and Bruce are fathers as well. So, yeah.
I went to YouTube many times. And it was really funny when we were putting, when we first doing the designs, we thought we would probably only need a couple hairs. She's only going to have a couple, but then we realized, oh no, we got to have like all the thumbnail. So we just went out and we just cast our net wide. And it's also great because it gives us a chance to showcase his beautiful hairdos, different styles.
Yeah, and then the look of the environments we talked a lot about how to really kind of offset the look of the character designs, and we really wanted it to be painterly and just have a really kind of graphic look to it. And we did a lot of research. Of course, everyone goes to Maurice Noble. We just thought there's such beautiful work there. We wanted to figure out how to simplify the backgrounds, but how minimal can we do it and really get the look that we're looking for. And the contrast here is just something that was really appealing to us. So we did a lot of exploration to try to get that look in the environments, and we're really happy with sort of the color choices and things that the inspiration gave us, and we finally settled on the locations that we had. We're also inspired by Walter Paraguay and his work on Dalmatians, of course, who's not. These are a lot of the things that we continue to look at and just make sure that we had the element and the essence of that background, but that we could really focus on the characters in front. And also Helen Lundberg, who's a post-surrealist painter. Everett and Stacy really did a great job giving us that. And then we really wanted to, we figured out we could reduce the colors and shapes, just how little could we get away with. So that was a lot, again, back to the exploration, some of the children's books we looked at. And our characters were shaped up to be more realized and complex, so that's why the contrast between the look of the characters that really kind of reflected the book, and then the backgrounds. And we weren't quite sure if we were going to pull it off. There's a lot of conversation about that, but then as we saw it kind of integrated, it really did kind of do the best of both of those. And Maria Yee was did the look development for us, and when we saw this image, this was the one that made us realize, okay, we can do this, and it's going to be as beautiful as we could imagine.
And again, it's all about specificity. That Matt was driving for. We knew that this family lived in a brownstone apartment in Chicago. They were young, they have style, but they're on a budget. So all this information kind of really helped inspire the look and what we were going for at home. So Stacey and I were we would get together, we'd have these meetings, we even shopped online at World Market for these characters. And actually, we came up with this really banging, I love the front room that actually got dropped. We were so disappointed about it because we were like, man, it looks beautiful. So Maria Yee, she actually created these thumbnails, and these were color studies of what this could look like. And it was kind of a very quick painting of what color treatment, and this actually became the foundation of everything. Yes, this is what we want it to look like. So this is what we kept coming back. We kept coming back to these 4 paintings over and over again. So it was interesting, the process we used SketchUp for storyboarding. So storyboarding and layout. SketchUp is this free online software. You can bring in models, and I just brought in a bunch of models, and we actually used them for visual development as well. So we took whatever I created in the scene, and we used it for story blocking, and we also gave it to Maria to kind of expand on. And from there, we actually were able to take it to the next level, and we actually turned it into a beautiful concept painting. And once we saw this, we were like, yes, this is it. And once we saw this, this is when everything really started coming, dropping into place. So
the background is so beautiful.
Oh my God, that bathroom. So this is Zuri's bedroom, and this is kind of what I staged it really quick, very crude 3D pieces. And this is the first concept that we did for the bedroom. But once we were started going and developing the character, we kind of quickly realized this isn't Zuri's bedroom. Your character kind of speaks to you, and it's way too pink. Zuri did not stand for this. So then we brought in a super talented painter named Kelsey Swan, and she was an artist at 6 Point. And at this point, she really helped us nail the backgrounds, and she was killing it. I mean, she almost single-handedly painted all of it. She was killing it. She was slaying. This is Zuri's bedroom. This is the other side of her bedroom. The hallway. I love this painting of the hallway. The light that came in. She actually painted 2 treatments for that. They were the darker one. It was just beautiful. And this is Mom's hospital. Funny story. This one, we were going through, and we started to get in production of these shots, and wait, did we design the hospital? And we had not. But then Kelsey came. She helped us out. She put this together. It turned out amazing. It turned out beautiful. Awesome. All right, talk a little bit about story development.
Yeah, and like Karen mentioned, earlier we had a very iterative process while developing the story. Everett single-handedly boarded the entire short several times over at the beginning. We also brought on some incredible storyboard artists along the way to support the process: Emily Dean, Katie Smith, Caitlin Van Arsdale, and Pearl Lowe. And as Karen mentioned, we really worked with that feature style of iterating and leaning on our peers. We had check-ins with Sony, and they really helped with the smart, supportive, and thoughtful notes. And we also relied heavily on our colleagues and friends like Peter Ramsey, Teddy Newton, and Tyree Dillay. One of the greatest story lessons that we learned during this process was the more that we got to know these characters, the less setup we needed. The characters will really tell you what needs to happen in the story oftentimes, and the more we got to know them, the more specific we got, and the more grounded they became in reality, and the less setup we needed, and the more economical we became, and it led to some really pretty drastic cuts along the way. So we're going to show you some clips and some things that didn't make the final short, and we're all very heartbroken about.
That team was really, so this was our original opening for the short, and as you can tell, it's really long, But, we wanted, the film was in pantomime, and we wanted to bring across the idea that, Zuri is this young kid, she's really, on it. She goes out, she does this stuff, she doesn't need dad's help too much, and hair is the one thing that she needs help with. But we found out, number one, it's just long, it's too slow. And we also were like, Dad seems lazy, he's just sleeping, she's taking care of herself. We wanted to project the idea that Dad's overworking, he's working at times, he's overslept, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, we didn't want any child labor law issues.
So we gave him a sense of urgency, he's running around the house, and we have a new clip to kind of show, oh no, let's just show Dad, he's overworked, he's busy, let's show him in action. This is kind of what we came up with. We thought that this stuff was great, but ultimately it kind of slowed down the storytelling. The great thing about it was it actually informed us about the dad. So we had that information. We're like, okay, so we know that's him, and when we cut into him later, we see him with, you see him on the other side of that. He's got the laundry basket and stuff. You get that idea. You got that feeling. So it wasn't wasted time. It was it helped us find those characters. So it was really valuable, actually.
And so obviously, losing those scenes are heartbreaking, right? But, for us, it's it always comes down to budget. And you always have to kind of manage the overall picture. And for us, it was because we weren't working with the $1 million budgets that, a lot of other studios are working with, we were kind of in this position where all right, we can include these scenes, but, when you're dealing with fantastical scenes and fantasy sequences, you want to make sure that they really are pushing the envelope. And for us, we just felt they were kind of hitting it a little bit, but not fully, and as well as we probably could have had we had more resources. So we just decided that, we were already kind of getting across the information as Zuri was obviously into her hair, and we were showing her going through the different slides and looking at the different hairstyles, and it kind of allowed us to involve the cat more and kind of show his personality and kind of show them interacting a little bit more. So, ultimately, that was probably the thing I was most heartbroken about losing.
That was a tough one. You guys saw there was animation.
Yeah.
The other thing is we'll quickly get into the animation part. Again, we really wanted it to be as beautiful as possible. We didn't have the budgets of the big studios, but we wanted it to feel lush and really cared for. So character animation was really important, and we wanted it to feel traditional, but we were in harmony, and so we had to figure out how do we sort of get the best of what traditional animation can do in harmony. And so that was for us really kind of pulling on great 2D animators to do the rough animation and then take that rough animation into harmony. And it was scary, but it actually was really great. And we leaned on the likes of Mike Owens, who did some really great pieces for us.
And the cool thing, if you this is also raw stuff, so you can actually see what we had, what we were delivering to 6 Point before we actually brought it into harmony. Part of the process is we didn't feel we wanted to animate and not have to worry about getting it exactly on model, and that's why we worked in harmony. So we got a lot of different performances in terms of how the character looks, but ultimately when we pulled it in harmony, it all came together. We just matched it. It worked perfectly. It worked great.
I think Mike's was probably the hardest because it was the first squash, so stretchy,
Absolutely.
but we figured it out.
you guys noticed, we brought down how broad it was. So that's part of the process of figuring out like how much movement do we want. Oh, this is work by Courtney DiPaolo, and she just did amazing, really beautiful work. I love how she captured the emotion of some of these scenes, and the sweetness.
She's too cute.
And this is Darlene Brewster. We call her the one-hit wonder because like she would send in shots, and we're like, yeah, it's done. Like they were like, she's a Disney veteran, so she's amazing. This is another Mike Owens, and we're showing this to show how we were really pushing him, how he was perfect for this section because he is so cartoony. And then finally, Aiden Terry. Aiden did some beautiful, like precious moments, and this was like a big one. This moment for us, like really, like you got to nail this. This has to, has to hit home. And he did an amazing job. I love that frame.
Yeah, we always had the ending, so the ending always kind of was what it was, and all our work really went into like how do we earn that ending, and setting that up. So. And now questions. Do you have any questions?
We're really, really blessed to have Charles Solomon with us to talk with us. We're very honored.
Well, actually, I feel very privileged to be here because I sit through some of the worst movies in the world as an animation critic. And then something like Hair Love comes along and the little light goes on and says, this is why you love this medium. This is what it can do. This is why you do your job. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here with these artists. And Matthew, what made you decide to go to Kickstarter to fund this? I mean, you've made a couple of live action movies. You're a bit of a professional athlete. I would think that you could just go to somebody and get some money.
It's never as easy as that. Like I said, I love the medium of Kickstarter. I think, I've been in that position where I was like young and reaching out to people, hey, check out my work. And oftentimes, you always end up disappointed because, the reality is that other artists have their own projects that they're working on, and a lot of times it's hard for them to take time off of their stuff to help others with their work. And so for me, I just really got into the mindset of like, you just got to build it. If you build it, they'll come. And, sometimes you have to put yourself out there because at the end of the day, right now, especially as accessible as filmmaking is now, where you can shoot a movie on iPhones. I shot my second movie on 2 iPhone 6S's. So, it's very democratized right now. And I feel like, with that comes more ideas, more people that are out here trying to hustle and get their stuff going, and you have to be able to cut through the noise more. And so for me, I just really wanted to be in a position where I could prove the idea and be like, here, look, we exceeded our goal. These are the people that backed us. And, we have an audience that is craving for stories like these, and it make it that much easier. And I think, getting in touch with Karen, I think us having a Kickstarter campaign really helped us getting our book deal. Had we went and pitched the idea to Penguin Random House, we probably wouldn't have gotten a book deal. But the fact that we had already had a Kickstarter going, it was buzzing, it was catching some heat, they came and they reached out to us to do that. So, for all the creatives out there, I always encourage you guys, if you're in a position to be able to prove your work initially, be that create a short film, do a Kickstarter campaign, because with Kickstarter, for me, it's less about raising money. It's more about being able to consistently put your work out there and let people know that you're working on something. And what often happens is people that you don't even know are aware of you or what you're doing will find it, and they'll be a part of it, and they'll help support it. So, I'm a huge fan of that medium.
Karen, you mentioned that this was done on a very tight schedule, something that producers and executives are used to, getting things done on time. How quickly was the film made?
Wow, it was 2 years, but I'll say we started animation, I think, in May of this year. So a lot of the time was about just spending, getting the story right. So again, in the nights and weekends that we were doing it, we spent a lot of time putting it up and screening it. So that felt luxurious. But then when we found out that we had a shot to put it in front of Angry Birds, it was like, oh my goodness, now we really have to get this done. And it was pretty lightning fast.
Yeah, and we turned it in, July 31st?
Yeah.
Everett, you showed us, some examples of the animation, talk about toning it down, and there's scenes you had to lose. Well, wishing you could just cut off an arm instead. This goes back, I think, to something that Ward Kimball talked about, which is what you leave out of a scene in animation can be as important as what you put in. And as an animator, and what experience, can you talk a little bit about that need to simplify and clarify?
Yeah, it's funny. I think, I've been on a lot of productions, and it always starts out the same. You kind of want to put everything in sync into it, and you're always concerned about, am I transmitting enough information to it? Do I need all of these scenes? But it isn't until you actually get it up. When you get the film done and you get it up and you actually watch it, then you start to realize that's where the real filmmaking begins. I think you see it up and you're like, okay, no, this doesn't work. This section is too long. This section is not long enough. And beyond that, you actually learn about the characters, which I mentioned before. So you learn that Zuri doesn't like that. Zuri wouldn't do that. You learn that there's scenes that. Dad, we love that stuff that we had with him, and it informed everything going forward. Even scenes later when he was doing our hair,
It also helped us figure out whose POV the story was from. That was always an important thing because we had so much dad in the beginning, and we were like, okay, who's actually changing kind of throughout this project? And we found out in the short that it actually was dad who. Initially he's not listening. He's kind of being a little hard-headed about trying to do his daughter's hair, just wants to put a hat on it. But by the end of it, he gets it, and he finally listens to her, and he's finally figuring it out. So, it's all about those type of things as well.
It's funny, as you mentioned, we always had that ending, and it really is, once Dad comes through the hallway and he slides down that door, there were two scenes that we were trying to earn. We were trying to earn that moment when Dad and Zuri are looking at each other and they connect, and Dad's like, I get it. I get where you're coming from. We had to earn that one. And then there was that moment where the family comes together and Mom decides to, take off the thing to show her head. And it's we know these aren't going to change, but we got to earn this.
Yeah.
We got to work hard to make the audience feel like it was worth it.
Yeah, you were talking before about that black fathers are underrepresented or badly represented, and it seems to me that that's something there aren't a lot of good fathers in films these days, and that you created a father who is, you like him, you sympathize with him, you feel for him in a way that's so rare.
Yeah, again, I think film is all about humanizing, and I think particularly in the African American community, black fathers have really gotten probably one of the worst raps in terms of, being depicted as deadbeats, not really there. And mind you, that may be the case in some instances, I think overall, there have been studies that came out when we were in the middle of our Kickstarter campaign that actually show that black fathers are among the most involved group with their families. But if you watch mainstream media, you wouldn't know it. And so I think it really was just about trying to put a good depiction of a black father out there. Make you earn him. He's not perfect, but at the end of the day, he cares about his kid, and I think that's something that we all can relate to, regardless of race. So just wanted to put that depiction out there.
Karen, I assume that you were once a little girl like this one, with hair that had to be dealt with. And do you have memories of that kind of situation growing up? I think you said in Texas.
Yeah, and that's a whole other layer of just making natural hair something that's okay, and not pressing your hair. I pressed my hair, like many people did, religiously when we were young, because in Texas that's what you were expected that's how you're supposed to wear your hair, you know, and even other black folks were like, no, you gotta press your hair. And so as I started to really want to express my natural hair, you know, it's with friction, you know, and it's getting better, but I've had somebody, you know, in the past month go, wow, you're an executive at a studio. Is it okay that you wear your hair like that? Is it okay? Because I'm going to be, this woman's going to be a head of business affairs somewhere. You know, she wanted to wear her hair naturally, and that was still a question today. So it's very relevant, and the more we kind of normalize that, I think it's really important for people to see.
And you are a dad, and you've done hair.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, you know, I talked about there's a struggle, you know, like, you know, the whole identity politics of it, you know, when we see in the media what's pressed out there, you know, I have two daughters, I see what they're watching, and, you know, it's like straight hair, and we just recently won this battle, you know, my youngest is like, I want to straighten my hair, and finally, you know, we kept her like, no, you got these, you know, people kill for hair like that, like, you know, and now she feels a lot of pride about it, which is great.
This didn't get in the cut either. I wish we got it. But we had a part where the hot comb was going to be the bad guy. The hot comb. And it became the hair blower, but you know what I mean. You know?
Yeah, we're about to get the hot comb industry on our back.
Even I tried that once to try and get no. Something that we were talking about before is that, and I'd like all of you to respond to this one, is in a couple of other shorts that we've seen recently, Sanjay's Super Team and Bao, which won the Oscar last year, is that if you tell your personal story and you tell it honestly, it becomes universal. Just as I think on a grander scale, Miyazaki, always being true to his Japanese roots, tells a story, and again, it becomes universal because of the truth in it. And so, thoughts on that from all three of you, please.
Yeah, you know, I mean, for me with the story, I always was a little self-conscious of like, is this story even big enough? Does it even deserve to be animated? You know what I mean? Because oftentimes in animation, you have these big, huge fight sequences and visual effects and all these things. And I was like, this is a story about a dad doing his daughter's hair. Like, is this even worthy of animation? And one of the first people I reached out to when I was doing the Kickstarter was Peter Ramsey. And I was like, hey man, what do you think of this idea? And he's like, dude, I think it's great. He's like, he's in the middle of working on Into the Spider-Verse. And he's like, you know, at the end of the day, animation is a medium, man. You know, like, if it's something that you feel like people will be able to relate to and respond to, you know, you got to do it. And I've always kind of taken that with me kind of moving forward. And, you know, that's something I would put out back to you guys, is that, you know, at the end of the day, like, personal stories, like, there is something that is relatable into everybody's experience, you know. And, you know, I don't know if you guys have ever found yourself in a movie theater watching a different movie that had a group of people that didn't look like you in front of it, and you were able to relate to that. You know, it's the same thing. As long as you're being truthful and honest, and, you know, we really leaned into the specificity of this project. I mean, hair products, locks, that's, you know what I mean? Like, we really threw in the kitchen sink, and us playing in front of a movie like Angry Birds, we were able to get exposed to a broader audience, and people related to it just the same, you know, and I think that's something that I'll always will take with me moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, in being in the industry, you know, before, like, pre-Black Panther, you guys know what I'm saying? Like, these, you know, stories with these characters don't travel. I mean, that's the thing that you hear. And, like, me, like, that's soul-crushing. I mean, there were certain movies that were coming out, that would come out, and before they came out, I'm like, I don't think you understand, this movie's going to crush because this audience is underrepresented. Right. Home, you know, I knew a bunch of people were at home, like, I don't know how well it's going to do. I'm like, no, that movie's going to crush. Like, all my aunts and uncles, you know, like, they all have that movie, you know, and it's like, we're underrepresented. And it's the important thing is that, you know, these are stories, you know, if you make them personal, there's two sides of it. There's the sides of, like, this is just fascinating. It's just an open, you know, audience. I don't see this, you know. This is interesting. You know, when you talk about Sanjay's Super Team, I haven't seen that. Like, Indian culture, it's fascinating to me. It's great. And then there's also the side of the people who don't see it as well. They're just like, oh, I can relate to this, and actually other people get to see this, and they can connect with it, and they can maybe understand me better. So that's.
And I think it's no, you know, surprise that, you know, those other pieces were short pieces as well, because I've, you know, again, been in this business a very long time, and I wanted to see myself, and I tried to pitch it to like, hey, let's get the Black Princess way before there was one. But you're making $100 million plus kind of movie, so I also sit on the side where fear is involved and risk is involved, and you just don't, you tell there's things about, oh, it won't translate, and international, all of that stuff. And so it's really nice to be able to do something in a short form that you can take risks, and I really feel like we can feel the movement changing, where people are accepting it more. So it's just good to be able to get it out there.
When you were talking about a robustness in the animation, Everett, the kind of young male, fairly athletic-looking character has always been something very difficult to animate. We think of the very stodgy princes in many of the early Disney features, for example. Yet this is a character who feels at home in his body and who moves a certain way and has to walk a certain way in his shoes when he's running up the hall. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Actually, the father, like when Matthew told me what type of dad he was, I was super excited about that, just because it's like young dad, like, had a certain look to him, like that was exciting for me. And I think it was actually exciting for the team too, because it's not normally a character. He's like, oh, we got this big guy, how do you show him Tinder? How do you show him, evoke and connect with him? And it was really interesting. I actually feel like the team, like, they were really up for the challenge, because, it is a character. Like, the thing you find out with animators is, like, they love a challenge. They take this stuff in and, they analyze the character, and they want to figure out, they want to break it down and figure out how this character moves. And the team was really good. And, of course, big ups to Bruce. Yeah, he came in and he just elevated all the animation. He's incredible. Yeah.
He helicoptered in, we started in April. Around April, and I was like, okay, I got
Came
you.
in like
I'll
SWAT.
do that.
He was amazing.
And he ultimately became one of the directors. I'm curious, Matthew and Everett and Bruce were two directors. How did you divide up chores? And Karen, did that leave you as the mom keeping the kids from fighting and over who was going to get his way?
I think the thing that was clear is Matthew's vision was so clear from the beginning that everybody was so passionate about telling the story that there was a complete alignment. Nobody was telling anything differently. They just wanted to get it on screen. And Everett and Bruce have such talents that they really kind of align in a great way that, yeah, three directors should be a nightmare, but it was the hardest thing scheduling our calls. Like, how are we all going to get on the same call at the same time? But there was none of that. And, again, both Bruce and Everett were doing drawovers, and it should have been hard, but it wasn't.
There's the idea of, like, the best idea wins, so that came through, really clearly. And I remember when I came on, I told Matt, it's like, I just want to help you get your vision, you know what I mean? So, and that was my goal, like, helping him, like, get this thing and, like, get what he wanted on film.
Yeah, and for somebody like me coming from live action, like, I always loved animated projects, but I can't draw, like, I always wanted to figure out how a person like myself would fit into that medium, and Karen and Sony have been great, and just being able to kind of support that and kind of put people around you. At the end of the day, a story is a story. You're trying to convey emotion. You're trying to make sure that the character emotes a certain way. You're trying to make sure that there's a connection and that people can kind of see it. And, for me, I just feel like my role was just more kind of big picture, just kind of making sure that everything was on track and making sure that we earned that ending.
Okay, well, we're about out of time, so please join me in thanking our guests and congratulating them on such a beautiful film.